Alright. Confirmed live and all normal. Alright, so let's get started. So yesterday we made reinforced iron plate production over here. Let's actually pop over and check on that. So we have this set up to first output to the truck station, and then eventually it'll trickle through to dimensional storage and then the sink. And it looks like we have a good amount of reinforced iron plates piling up. Now the thing I want to check on is power. And sure enough, we're starting to get not like super urgently close that like I need to panic, but I should probably do something about that. And as part of doing something about that, we need to head up here. So currently I don't have anything putting empty canisters into dimensional storage, right? Canister is 0 out of 400. Yep. Alright, so we need to I guess we need to sort this out. The problem is currently, like, these things are quite precarious. So the way this canister recycling system works is that this box fills up first, and then when anything gets in this box, as you can see there is here, it cuts off all of the new production from coming through, which means nothing more produces. Now the problem is that we have multiple of these in parallel, and if, for example, this one filled, but this one down here, which is connected to the same truck stop and everything, if this didn't fill for some reason, then new production would still come through here. And so then eventually it would get split between these two. So even though this was already filled, this box would continue to get more and more filled until eventually stuff got sunk. And that is a bit of a problem. Now, I think the way to fix that is with, basically we need to balance these belts going in and out of these things to make sure that they can always be synced. And then once that happens, I can just stick a dimensional storage on one of the output belts and it'll be fine. But if I don't have them balanced and I stick a dimensional storage on one of the output belts, then one of the output belts will get more load than the other, which means that this won't fill up as easily as the other, and the whole thing will fall apart basically. So let's do some balancing, shall we? And there's a similar problem on the input side. Like, as we can see, these two are basically empty because they're receiving from a stop which doesn't do anything. So I think we can use this bottom floor for that purpose. There's not anything in these, right? Right, these are all empty. So what we need to do is actually probably should just design a blueprint for this. So let's head on over to the blueprint designer and design a balancer that balances 4 belts evenly across 4 belts. And I I don't think I've ever officially done this before, but I'm pretty sure I know how it works. Like the general idea. So let's head down here. And so we have input of 4 belts to 3, 4. And we want to output 4 belts as well. Alright, so I'm pretty sure the first thing you do is you split up all of the belts. These are probably too close. So let's get rid of these and probably just have them spaced out like that. So let's start with balancing 2 belts, and then we can scale that up to 4. So first off, we have a splitter. And we have a splitter. Now these belts go into the splitter. And then they come out of the splitter. So now we have 2 belts which have been converted into 4 belts with however much these have. Each of these 4 belts has half of that on it. And this last one doesn't go out to the same distance, and I'm just gonna make it do that just for neatness. So now we take a merger and we merge those 2 in together. So now this belt is half of this belt plus half of that belt. And we just need to do the same thing on the other outside belts. And the question is, how do I get the outside belts to get to each other without causing problems? I guess we can do something like that. And so then this one, it's easy to get in. This one is significantly less easy. So if I take that apart and have this curve out and then up, and then stay over that and then down into there. Alright, we have now 2 belts again, except these 2 are evenly balanced. Okay, now I need to do the same thing 2 more times. This is going to need to be way more compact. So basically I need to do the same thing with the other 2 belts, because I want to do 4 total. And then I need to do the same thing another couple of times. Alright, so we have that. That's more compact. And then this needs to not go out so far. Don't destroy the blueprint designer. Alright, so then we take all of this apart. And put that there. And we attach that into that. That out. This is set to default. And it goes not onto that. I think we can save even more space. Up there, and then down and over. Alright, so now we have this. And we just need to... It feels like there's got to be a more compact way of doing this, but... Wait, maybe I have an idea. I don't know if this will work. I might be dismantling all of this for nothing and then have to rebuild it. But what if this one goes over there and then these left two merge up. So then this one goes up and over. And we need a merger. And that's too steep. I wonder if I can nudge this at all to be... Okay, what if like that and then over? Oh yeah, that is some cursed belting, but it works and it shouldn't clip. And then that goes in there. Alright, let's call that good enough. So we have this, which... I don't know, maybe it'll just look better for them to clip rather than do that horrific thing. Actually, I wonder if... No, probably not. I just had a harebrained scheme, but I don't think it would work. Alright, let's see if maybe we approach this slightly differently. What if... So we have this, it's splitting off into two. And let's say the two are those two. Now, if we have the other belt just alright. Steam notifications are covering like half of my screen for some reason. Don't know why that is. Alright. So then if we have a merger here, let's get that out of the way. So we have a merger there. Then we have another splitter there. So these two belts would feed into this one, and that would be half of it. Then these two belts would feed into another merger here. And that would be the other one. And then this one... No, I don't want it to go there. I want it to, like, awkwardly sit on top of it. And let's put a stackable conveyor pole here. And then that can go up. Is there any mode where that doesn't look as bad? Not particularly. So maybe if we just put another stackable conveyor pole, can this get up that high? It can. And does one of the alternate modes get it to... Something like that actually looks quite good. Alright. And then this one can go out to there. Alright. Now we have this. So let's save this as 2-to-2 belt balancer. And now we can just like put a second one in. And have them lined up. Alright, so now we have 2 sets of belts that are balanced. But so the problem here is that these 2 sets of belts are balanced with each other, as are these 2. But if this side gets more than that side, then we still have a problem. So what we need to do now is just balance, like another row of this, and then balance all these together, and then it should work. So let's not actually save that. It's too trivial to be worth saving. So we have the basic setup. Now we will head on over. And we just need to build like four of the 2-to-2 belt balancers and link them together, and then it should all work. And then we'll have to do the same thing on the other side. So it's going to be a bit space consuming. I feel like I could probably make it more compact, but I don't know how. It feels like there has to be a better way. Alright, so let's get over here. And take all of this stuff apart. We need this space. Dismantle filter. How does that work? So, alright. I don't understand how the dismantle filter works. But I think if we do it like that and then we wave around, we can dismantle all of the conveyor belts. And then we get the convergers. And then we get the smart splitters. And at this point, it's just going to be easier to do things manually. I lied. It's going to be easier to do things like this. Alright, so then we get all of those, and we get the last couple ones of those. And a random straggler conveyor pole. And some awesome sinks. Alright, now we have this space here, which we can use to set up our balancing. So, we need to fit probably in 2 layers, so they can go right by the middle there. Alright, so that's step 1. And those 4 outputs will go into these. Yeah, okay. And then we need...
You are currently 451% less efficient than your peers.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Ada. Very cool. Alright, so then we need to build this wall up to be just barely higher than the top of that ramp, which I'm pretty sure it is now. No, we could use one more. Alright, may as well have built two 4-meter walls. We're saving like 1 meter by doing it this way. Alright, please just let me place it in the correct level. There we go. Okay. Now we have enough space. We can build this floor out. And build it out that way. Alright. So now we have this. We have to build another set of these balancers facing the other way. And let's line them up nice and neatly by the edge and roughly central. Alright, so now we have that. Now we just need floor holes in all of these locations. And feed them up through conveyor lifts. Alright, so we have that. Now we need to make sure that these mix and match. So I think we take that one into there. And this one, so not ladder, and then that one goes into there. So now we have one of each getting balanced there, and then we just do the same thing on this side. So you come down, you come down. And then you go into there. And you go into there. So, now each of these sets of 2 is receiving 1 from each, which means that these 4 belts over here should be entirely balanced between all 4 sets. So now we can link these up to these, I guess, and yeah, so we'll first link these up into this system, then we'll link the system up into those things up there. The input belt is also, this is also going to have to be load balanced, but it's way easier. It's just a 1 to 4, which is trivial. Alright, so we hop down here. And we cut this off. And instead we put a floor hole there with a lift in it. Alright, so then that gets one of those. Right, it actually needs to come down. And what we'll do is we'll have all of them get their floor holes here, and then most of them will just go up past each level. So most of these seem to be backwards. So let's build them in reverse mode properly. Alright, so then that comes around and in there. This one comes down and in there. That clips a little bit, which I don't want. So then that comes down like that, and then in there. And then this one comes over and in. And then this last one just goes in there. Alright, so we have that. And then one of them goes into each row. We need to extend these floor holes up to the next level. And did that work properly? Alright, there we go. So then this one, that gets cut off. And get one of those, and in. Then these two get extended to the next level. And up you go. Up you go. And these last two are the ones that are actually in use, so at this point we might end up breaking something. But we take that apart. We put that in there. We extend this one up one level further. And we take this apart. We put that one in there facing this way this time, because I think that would be nicer. Alright, so now the input is entirely set up. We just need to attach these 4 belts into these 4 belts. So let's take those apart. And let's see, I don't want to cause problems for any vehicles that happen to be coming around here. So we're going to try to keep these relatively high off the ground. And should be enough, I think. We are going to have to adjust these ever so slightly so that they actually go into the inputs properly. So let's take that out and belt you in. And take that out and we belt you in. And we take that one out and you go in. And then that one out. And then you go in. Alright. And conveniently at this exact moment, we see these going through. And it sure looks balanced to me. Alright. That seems to be a mission success. Alright. So now all of those are balanced on the input side. We need to balance the outputs so that they don't break. And then we're also going to have to move these canisters that are already in here around because, like, these bottom two are almost empty and the top two are almost full. Alright. Not the random wall on the other side of the map. Alright, so we have that. Next up, we need to do this. So, this gets its input from a single belt. And it needs to be perfectly balanced, which it currently is not. So let's take this whole thing apart. And this smart splitter is also unnecessary. Alright, so we have to go over here and find the belt. There it is. So we are just going to bring it directly onto this floor. It's going to clip straight through. We'll fix that later, I guess. And we're going to do another wall of conveyor lifts. First, we need to use some more of this space. So none of this stuff does anything, so we're going to get rid of it, including that random conveyor pole. And we have... Alright. How do we want to do this? So what we need is... like... Let me think. So we need two splitters feeding out from a central splitter. So I guess something like that. Where's the input on this splitter? Like that, that, that. And then that goes into there. These get belts. And then we have potentially up to 6 outputs. We only need 4. But I actually think we don't want this pointing this way. We want this pointing the other way. So if this points this way, we're going to have to dismantle these belts and rebuild them. So now, this, instead of going there, will come around here. And feed in there. And then that goes there to feed this level. And we need 1, 2, no, not there. This one. And then these 2. Wait, that's not actually where the floor holes go, but it's close enough to get the idea. That's where the conveyor lifts are going to be going up through. Alright, now you need to go up a little bit to not clip, and then go across into that. Alright, now we put these floor holes up above us. And bring them down. Alright, this was supposed to be lined up with this, but it clearly is not. So then it actually goes just a little bit over this way. Did I even change that at all? I can't remember. We will see. Alright, yep, so then that goes in there. And that goes in there. And now that should be evenly split among those 4. So we can come up here. Get rid of all of that. And get rid of that smart splitter, which does literally nothing. And then this. What? Why did it act like that? Ah, Satisfactory. What a sensible and normal game sometimes. Alright, so then we just put these floor holes up there. And they run through. And then we go up to the next floor, where we get rid of all of this. And then this gets a floor hole. And goes there. And one more. This goes all the way up to the top. And then we take this apart. Give this the conveyor lift. And attach it in. And okay, the input side is now entirely balanced. So that is good. And the problem is now the output side is not balanced at all. So we need to do that, I guess, up here. I guess we do that up here and then bring these down to the other side. So let's take these connections out. And we need to get all 4 belts up here. And I think we're gonna bring them up to another floor even above this one. So let's do some of that. I think 5 long is the right number. And we do this. And we do that. Alright. So that is complete. Now what we need to do is bring these belts up there, which we can do via some floor holes. And we'll move the floor holes over here so that we can adjust them as need be. 2. Let's have them go up on either side of this one, just so that the belts don't have to move as much. Alright, then this one goes there. That one goes there. And I'm pretty sure that one goes there. Alright. And that is the correct direction that they're facing. Alright, so then we have those. Now we have to go down to each floor and connect them up to one of them. So this one can go here. Alright, let's tear that belt out to give more space to adjust. And then we do these two, which are there and there. So then they come down. And then we just have to do the same thing on the next 2 floors. So we tear that out. We bring this down. I think facing that way might make it easier. No, it doesn't seem to. Alright, so we get it in that way. And then we need to do the bottom floor. So then we go down here. And we take all of that apart. Bring this one down. And in. Alright. Now all of the floors are reconnected back up at the top. So let's head up there. And I believe all we have to do is the whole balancer thing again. Just, it'll be functioning in reverse this time, but that doesn't really make a difference to it. So we need this. And we need to nudge it over there. And put it in and do that again. Alright, did that line up properly? No, it did not. Trying to place blueprints while flying, never the easiest thing in the world. Alright. We have it lined up that time. So now we just need to connect these in to each of these inputs. That goes there. That goes there. That goes there. And that goes there. And we go up another floor, and this time we're not going to bother with the half-eye walls because it saves basically 0 space. And we build this floor out. We bring the belts up to it. And while we're at it, get rid of another random floating conveyor belt. Don't want that. Okay. We should put these in first and then figure out how to get those belts up. Alright, so I think we want a fair amount of space. And these are just outputting down to there. So it's fine for these to be right up next to the edge. Also, there are a lot of just random conveyor poles in this blueprint. But that's not a huge deal. So let's get these floor holes in and see if these locations work for bringing these guys up too. Alright, so we need... This one is pretty much forced to go in there. Which means that this one has to go over here. Because they need to be split up. Which means now we need to get some other thing over there. So one of these goes into here, the other one has to get all the way over there. Alright, none of those are going to work. Maybe... Will that work? No. Alright. Let's bring this one down to ground level. And tear that apart. And rebuild it like that. Get rid of that stackable conveyor pole that's just in the way. And then finally we need to squeeze this one in there, I guess. Technically works. And then from there into that. And so we have this left side, one goes into that one goes over there. Alright. Should work. Now we just hook these up to the final level of balancing. And now we just bring these belts down into those conveyor lines down there, and all will be finished. Which is going to be a lot easier said than done, but it still won't be that hard, hopefully. Alright, so we need to stagger these horizontally so that they all have room to go up. And that one comes up. And then this one is going to have to not snap into something inside of that factory. Alright. Well, I guess let's get these hooked in first. And we're going to need a midway point for these further ones because they are too far. And then finally, we have to get this one out like that. And up. And in. Alright, so I believe that this should take the output and spread the demand for it evenly among all 4 belts. Among all 4 inputs, that is. So if we head down here to this level to check, yep, these all look like they're working the same amount. Alright, and now the last thing we need to do, now that we've done all of that, is we need to redistribute everything that is in these boxes, because like these ones are almost full and the bottom ones are almost empty. Now, as long as it's not too far apart, it should be fine-ish. But what is going on right now definitely constitutes being too far apart. So let's grab some stacks from these top 2. And deposit some stacks in these bottom 2. I also have some random stacks that were just in my inventory for no apparent reason. Alright, that's nowhere near sufficiently balanced, but it's a start at least. So that's like 2.5 lines. Then we go up here. This is like 3-ish lines. And this is now down to 3-ish lines. And then we go up here. And then this is down to 3-ish lines. So now we just need to distribute these evenly. So that's now up to a little over 3 lines. Then we go up here. This one can take a couple. And we may have overcompensated a little. This one can take a couple back. And then we go up here, and this one can take a couple back. And it should work out pretty much. Now we're gonna have to see how long it'll take a while for this to reach equilibrium again. So these individual modules work, and now that the whole thing is balanced, the whole thing should work as long as the amount that's in them is balanced to begin with. It should stay balanced. And alright, so that is all that. And let's check to make sure we didn't completely ruin our supply of canisters. Nah, looks fine. Alright. So, now that we have all of that, we can do the thing that is basically the reason why I did all of this in the first place, as opposed to just setting it off to be a future problem, is I can now take one of these lines and attach a dimensional storage to it, and it'll be fine. So, where is a nice place to do that? Maybe like just at the end. Yeah, I can just take one of these 2 factory attachments and use that for the dimensional storage. That goes up there. Give me a nice flat surface to work with. And dimensional depot. No, we want a storage container feeding into a dimensional depot. And there you go. Why store empty canisters? So, the reason is very specific to what I'm doing. So I have a blueprint that makes distilled packaged fuel, which is way more efficient than regular fuel. However, in order to use that blueprint, there needs to be some canisters inside of the blueprint to begin with, and then it just recycles those same canisters around. But let's actually show it. Where is that blueprint? Somewhere in here. Fuel generator Mark II. If you'll see here, it needs 100 canisters. Yeah, because the machines have to be preloaded, because this doesn't take any canisters, or it doesn't take any canisters as input, and it doesn't produce canisters on its own. So it just needs to have some canisters in there to get the ball rolling. So yeah, I need very few canisters, but I don't know. I'm not low on Mercer spheres, so it's fine. And as far as this whole giant system here, this is also a more complicated canister storage thing, and the reason it exists is because otherwise, if I don't have a backlog of canisters, then every time I place a new truck station that takes like anything canister related, the entire system just like grinds to a halt temporarily because there aren't enough canisters. So with this storage, that all works better. Alright, so that is done. Only took me like an hour to do a basic fix to something which I built yesterday. But now we can do the actual thing I want to do today, which is power. Because that's why we were storing these canisters over there. Yeah. The entire thing is on a manifold across the entire factory. That's a good way of putting it. So just having a bunch backlogged just makes that manifold fill properly without shutting random stuff down. Yeah, it's not, it's one of those things where when you have a whole interconnected system and it just sort of happens like that, it obviously would never be a concern if you're building like discrete isolated production lines, but I'm not doing that, so here we are. Alright, with that done, we now have a supply of empty canisters in the dimensional storage, and we can head off to increase the power production. Shout out to that one truck whose the path lines are on for it, and I can't find it, and it's just stuck there forever. Alright, so let's head over. Power lines are somewhere over here. And I have the blueprint for them. The blueprint still works perfectly, so this should be pretty quick. So we're just gonna head on over. It's very funny every time you pass something like that, and it's like, oh yes, that was my starter plastic and rubber factory that I built ages ago and have never touched since, and it's just more than sufficient for dimensional storage purposes. Alright. Power plant is over here somewhere. I don't know exactly where. I think it's a little bit further. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I forgot. Yeah, so load balancing is a bit tricky. So the thing with load balancing is that in theory, you never need to do it. In theory, manifolds are enough. But in practice, like sometimes it can be far more useful to have load balancing. And like it causes manifolds to fill quicker is the biggest thing. Whereas like a factory might take hours and hours and hours to start up if you're using a manifold, whereas load balancing, it might take a couple minutes. That's the biggest advantage. And it can be a bit tricky. There are some cool tricks you can do to help load balancing, but for the most part, pretty much just gotta learn the ratios and stuff. Alright, so here we are. And we need to just, I think just expanding this line would work. Can't see why it wouldn't. I think I haven't used up all the crude oil in the pipes going up here. And if I have, then I can fix that. So you can pull off a line anywhere by combining all the total production together. So like, when you say load balancing a bus, I don't fully understand. So like you have a single line where you're producing say plastic in like 10 different locations. And then you can access plastic in any of those locations. Is that what you mean? Yeah. Yeah, you use buses more in Factorio, don't you? Alright. Yeah. I've seen people use like main bus style things in Satisfactory. It's like technically, I did something like that at one point with trains, but it wasn't exactly the same. Alright, set this to build mode auto connect. And see if the auto connection works properly. Yeah, trains are pretty good for that. Hooray, I have solved this problem just by saying the word trains. I am a genius. Alright. Yeah. Trains are quite useful for... In my first ever world, which I did on my own, yeah. You just put it on a train and then it just kind of works. Alright, so let's get that in there. And missing concrete and iron plates after a single placement. This is a lot more resource intensive than I remembered it. Alright. Yeah, we need to go back to the base. I didn't realize it was going to be that bad. Been upgrading power for all of 5 minutes that we have to return. Alright, so there is a ladder that I can use to get up onto the pathways. Oop, I missed it. So up we go. Alright, over we go. So we just have to head back, load up on concrete and iron plates. Yeah, that's definitely how it works. Like, in Factorio, from what I understand, like, you have to fight the biters to expand, right? So, like, if you can save space, then you have to, pretty much. Whereas in Satisfactory, it's more like, just may as well use additional space if you have it. Alright. Over we go. The city looks quite cool from a distance, I think. Especially now that it's growing a bit. It looks like an actual proper city from a distance. It looks sort of janky up close, and I could fix that by like doing coloring and like coloring the walls and decorating things. Probably should do that at some point, but I like my rugged, practical, boring looks. Alright. Over we go. Let's grab a good couple stacks of iron plates and a couple stacks of concrete. And get some of this coal and iron ingots out of my inventory while I'm looking at it. I don't know how and when these got in here. I mean, I know generally when. It was when I was working on my coal and iron ingot project. But I don't want you. Alright. Now, for this blueprint, is it just those two that are needed? Yeah, okay. So it is just buildings being physically smaller. Yeah. The nice thing about Factorio from what I've seen is like it's way easier to like load and unload belts. Like getting manufacturers to like line up properly with all the inputs is a huge pain in Satisfactory sometimes. Whereas in Factorio, like you just have your like little grabber arm things that it just works. All right, I should probably also grab some copper sheets. All right, so let's grab some copper sheets while I'm here. I mean, really, like, if you think about it, the grabber arm things are basically just, like, the third dimension, sort of, in Factorio. Like, they go over the belts. It's just most things can't go over the belts. Alright. So let's make the journey back on over to the power generation. Bit of a trek. Alright. Walking on over. Walking on over. There's all sorts of like random blue power slugs, which realistically I should probably stop and get, but like I don't know, it's a blue power slug. There are so many of them that, like, if I were to grab all of them, it would add up to a fair number of power shards, but it would take so long to grab all of them. Alright, here we are. And almost there. Alright, so we can get to work expanding the power setup. So, with this, we just have to do this a bunch more times. And in building can push whatever can push in Factorio, but in Satisfactory, given there's only one output, you're beholden to your max belt speed. Yeah, that's definitely... So in Factorio, I think from what I'm remembering, like, you can have, like, if it's like a 3x3 building, you can have, like, the belt running past one side and have 3 grabber arms pulling out onto it. That's definitely interesting. I do think, like... I think Satisfactory's way is also pretty interesting just because, like, it means you have to think about your max belt speed, which, I know, it's like an additional constraint, which I think the additional constraint does make it somewhat more interesting, personally. I don't know, though. Is this... This doesn't look right. Why is it doing it like that? Alright, it's gotten confused about what's connecting where. Alright, so if we do it that way, now the right ones are connecting. And then, so we do the first click, which assigns that, and then we have to bring it in to do the second click, which actually, like, officially places it. And there we go. And did those actually connect properly? Yes, they did. Alright, cool. So let's just keep running this line along. Alright, keep on doing this. And I feel like there has to be a better way than zooping them like 10 at a time. But placing blueprints maybe is marginally faster, but it seems way more finicky. Alright, so this extra space out the back is not needed at all. So I could just skip doing that. Yeah, the infinite zoop mod would be the option for that. Alright, so then this lines up like that. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really looked into any mods for Satisfactory. Like, the ones that I would have considered are like Infinite Nudge, and that's now in the game, so... Alright, so then we have that. Oh, it's the whole stupid 2-click system thing, right? Please, just line up properly. So I can nudge you into space. Alright, and then we bring it in nice and close, and place it. Alright. Is this connecting correctly? No, it's doing some weird stuff. Alright, so that is the correct connections. And we just get it to line up. And place it in. many of these do I realistically need? Probably, I'll do another 2 for now. I'll do 2 more of these, then hook them all up to power. So we're going to need more foundations. Alright. That's probably enough foundations. I don't know, I'm bad at judging space-related things. Alright, so then that gets them all connected up properly. And now we just have to nudge it into alignment and place it. Oh boy, cheap viewers, what a great deal. Alright, so then we have that, and we need one more, which looks like we will need a little bit more space. So let's get a couple more layers in. And fuel generator. Alright, then this goes like there. Alright, so now it's connected to the right things. And now I just need to get it to line up. Alright. That is that. And it's taking forever for these things to load in. But it does seem to be working. Alright, so now the last step is to put the roofs on and then hook them all up. Alright, so blueprints, generator Mark II roof. Where are you? Generator roof Mark II. Alright, so then that just does that. And that. And that. And that. And there. And there. Alright, now we just need to do the power attachment. So first we'll attach the roofs up. And let's see, another couple. I managed to get quite a few in here. The closest SAM to the desert biome, I believe I'm getting mine like there's a cave like around here maybe. I don't know, wait, can I scan for it? Will that even show it that far away? So yeah, there's some here which isn't horribly far from the desert. And I think I'm getting mine around here. And then there's one up there as well. So yeah, that would probably that or this one down here, which is too far from where I currently am to show up on the scan. Alright, so the roofs are all hooked up. Alright, now we head down and we need to attach in the bottom halves. Yeah, I'd look there. It's where I'm getting my SAM for this save, so... Alright. Now we need to look through these tiny gaps and hook these ones up. And another one. And another one. And another one. And now they should be powered on, probably. Let's check. Yep, looks like they're starting up. And it will take a while for that to trickle through. Assuming it even works at all. So let's get up here and see. I actually have no idea how much crude oil this uses. Let's see here. Crude oil and water might be an issue. So it's 15 crude oil and 40 water per thing. So that's like 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90. So I've added like 90 crude oil and like, hang on. How many was that? 6. No, it was 40 per thing, right? Yeah, so it's 40 water. So that's like 240 water. There's no way that this is going to be enough water input for all that. Because this is like a Mark 1 pipe. So let's bring up another pipe of water just to preempt that. It's not really going to be preempting it by the time I get down. By the time I get it set up, it's probably already going to be a problem. So we head down. And here are some water extractors that we've already built. Are we using all of these? Yes, looks like it. Alright. So then we'll just build another couple. Water extractor, water extractor, water extractor, water extractor, and we won't need all 4 of these, but may as well build excess water production. It's not going to hurt anything. Alright, Mr. Bean has decided to stand there. Thank you. Alright, we're just going to ignore that one then. Alright, he's moving. This is my chance. Now I just realized that all these are Mark 1 pipes. So let's upgrade them. And let's see here. Power line. Give me another one of those. May as well make it Mark 3 while we can. Alright, so then we hook all of those up like that. Now we need to get the pipeline over and then up there. Alright. So I want this to go up over here so that I don't have to upgrade this pipe and like have that be a thing. I just want to run up a second pipe. But that is going to require me getting up there and bringing a wall down. Alright, so we jump around that pipe. And then we keep on climbing. Alright, so now we're up here. We can head over here. And somewhere around this part of the map, we place a wall and drop that down. And we're going to have to ladder back up, which is fine. Alright. So we have our wall. And where is that pipe? Here it is. So just keep this coming on over here. And there's really no need for me to build the water extractors over there. It would make perfect sense to just build them over here in this body of water. But that's what I've done. Okay. I forgot landing in water messes with everything. Alright, so then the pipe goes up. And the pipeline pump Mark II are very good at bringing it all the way up there. So now we need to head over to find a power pole. And you can be upgraded to a power pole Mark III. And then we drag this line over there. And we power up the pumps. And it looks like that is enough to get the water up there. Now we just need to go to architecture, make a ladder, and start going up. Alright, up we go. Up we go. And that should bring us just about to the top. Alright, so then this can come up and over, and then over there, and then just into that. And hopefully that should supply the water we need. Am I? I still got 12 left. But yeah, may as well refuel. Thank you for the reminder. Alright. So then this... Where does the water even go? It goes up. It's a whole complicated thing. So... Almost out for you is like 50. I don't know. It depends on how much you use it. Like... A couple hundred lasts me a good while, you know? Alright, so we have water. It's producing the packaged water. Which should then come down here and make packaged fuel, which we can then unpackage. And this is the container where the empty canisters are put in. See, you're worried you'll forget if you put it off. That is probably correct. I have definitely fallen from the sky on multiple occasions because of a lack of jetpack fuel. But I just deal with that when it happens, pretty much. Alright. Looks like this should all be evening out. Currently, power production is sort of unstable, but that's because of the water shortage. Is there also a crude oil shortage? Alright, yep, see you in a bit. Doesn't look like there's a crude oil shortage. The crude oil usage is a lot less than the water usage, so that's not really surprising. And let's see, this is still counting as only working at 31%. It's pretty clearly going to be at 100%, and it's just working its way up. And yeah, power production is climbing. It's hard to tell to how much. Definitely at least this spike. I kind of wish capacity would also show you like generators which aren't currently being powered but could potentially be, or if there was an option for that somewhere. That would be cool. Alright, looks like it might be evening out a little bit. It shouldn't be evening out below the maximum possible. Alright, it looks like... Yep. See, this is why resource shortages are annoying. Because now it does all of this nonsense, and who knows when whichever machine is currently lowest on water will get the water it needs. That seems to all be going according to plan. Capacity now over 10,000 megawatts. Max consumption is a ridiculously high number because something trains. Remove the power lines from each generator, give it 30 seconds, turn it back on. Yeah, that would definitely work. I have done that in the past, and it's worked fine, but there's no real urgency to have it perfect immediately. Like, even if it's rocky like this, it'll work itself out at some point. So I'm not really worried about it. The only reason I'm staring at it is because I want to know like how much it's actually producing, and it looks like just above 10,000 megawatts is the answer to that. Oh, it's probably... Is it splitting evenly between the two generators? That could be a source of problems. If it isn't doing that, that is. Looks like it is, though. Looks like everything is more or less sorted out. And, oh, here's a potential problem. The polymer resin belts are looking pretty close to full. So let's make that a Mark III belt, at least for these last couple. That's Mark III, and that's Mark III. So run along and make all this Mark III. It should more than double the amount of polymer resin that it can handle, which should prevent that from being a problem. we're just going to run along and upgrade this entire line. It's not going to hurt anything to do that. It's a little annoying that I have to click 3 times for each of these long straightaways. Alright. So that's all that. And now the polymer resin sink should be more than quick enough. It's still moving quite a lot of polymer resin, honestly. Like, I didn't think it would be that much, but at some points the belt is almost entirely saturated. Alright, has it balanced itself out? Yes, it has. Production 10,475 megawatts. I think we're at like 7,500-ish before we did this. So that's another significant improvement. And hopefully will be enough to last us through to nuclear power. At least basic nuclear power. I don't want to have to keep running out and doing this every couple of streams. Alright, now we head back and we continue replacing functionality of the old city with the new city. So the next thing is going to be motors, I think. We're probably just going to go in order of how I built things in the old city and replace them with new stuff. Although we're going to be doing it with probably different recipes most of the way through. You built a huge tower and pumped the fuel and water to a buffer on the very top. Yeah, that's, I think, generally the better way to do it, but I don't know, my system is pretty simple, so it doesn't require all that much complexity. And it's not like I'm worried about getting the pipes 100% full, which is a huge pain. Yeah. That's my general rule with fluids, is try to keep everything involving fluids as simple as possible, because they can become a nightmare very quickly if it's remotely complicated. That's like the primary reason I have all of these like packaging stuff, so that I never have to worry about fluids outside of the bounds of like individual blueprints. Aluminum is complicated. Yeah. Aluminum is pretty much the first place where it's very easy to make a mistake and have production just stop entirely. Even like it's not obvious what your mistake is. I don't know why I'm heading out all the way over there. I need to go to the blueprint maker to make a motor blueprint. So yeah, the thing with aluminum is, like, you have to either figure out weird arcane nonsense with how pipes work exactly, or you just have to have like the byproduct water going into separate refineries, and that also typically works pretty well. Alright, let's look at motors. So there are 2 options for motors currently that I have access to. There's the regular motor, which is 2 rotors, 2 stators to 1 motor. Or I could do the rigger motor, which is literally 4 times as efficient in terms of motors and stators. So instead of 2 to 1, it's effectively 1 to 2. But you also need crystal oscillators, which I guess aren't that terrible. That's another thing we can produce. So let's try using the rigger motor recipe. It seems maybe it'll be better. I don't know, how much does a crystal oscillator use? it uses some quartz, some cable, some reinforced plates, or I could do the other alt recipe, which seems more complicated than it's worth. The production rate of aluminum. Yeah, aluminum has like weird numbers in it, doesn't it? Got it. Alright. So, oh no, the oscillators. Right, oscillators production rate. Yeah, it's somewhat miserable how slow these production rates are. That's for sure. So if I wanted to do this recipe, I need 1.25 oscillators per minute. Yeah, it's very much a thing where you really don't need all that much. Now, if I do this crystal oscillator using the alternate recipe, it's more efficient on quartz. It uses rubber. The rigger motor recipe, which requires crystal oscillators. Yeah, it's 1 per 6 motors, but it's 1.25 per minute. That you got to be careful about that. It's very easy to get confused. Yeah, it's 1 per batch. All right, so I could use the alternate recipe there, and it's more efficient on quartz crystals, but then that would require me to make AI limiters, which are fortunately quite simple. Yeah, it's pretty handy. You can also do things like, for example, this is 1.875 per minute. If I want to set this to 1.25 per minute, it can work out the calculations in here for everything as well. Just like you're in the machine, you can work out how much of everything you need. It's great. It's surprisingly useful. All right, so AI limiter production, because this is going to use like a lot of reinforced iron plates, really. So AI limiters, we have either plastic or quick wire. Plastic and quick wire, or copper and quick wire. I'm already producing plastic in my factory, so that would be trivial, and I would just need to get quick wire set up. And it's also more efficient on deuterium. It's effectively 15 per 1. Alright, so plastic AI limiter. So we need 1.25 crystal oscillators per minute, which means 1.25 AI limiters per minute, which means this is 1.25. So we need 18.375, no, 18, where did I get 375? Oh, from the plastic. 18.75 quick wire and 4.375 plastic for, and that gives us 1.25 AI limiters. And then that plus 12.5 quartz crystals, 12.5 quartz crystals, and 8.75 rubber. And that gets us to the 1.25 oscillators. And then we need to add onto that sub-rotors and stators, I guess. 3.75 rotors, 3.75 stators. 3.75 rotors, 3.75 stators. Alright, then I need to figure out how I'm making the rotors and stators. This is starting to get complicated. And complicated enough that I'm going to write it down on something that isn't just the notes. So let's get a square sign here. Tell it to lay out as just text. So we need 18.75 quick wire plus 4.375 plastic plus 12.5 quartz crystals plus 8.75 rubber. And then that gets me the crystal oscillators. With a couple intermediate steps. So then rotors. We need 3.75 of each. So we could do this using screws. And that would make 3.75 easily. We have two alt recipes. We could do steel screws or copper rotors. Let's do... Okay, wait, hang on. If we use steel pipe for this, we would need to bring in coal, but we have coal already on the factory. So we could also do one of these other alt recipes, but I don't really want to use iron pipe for this. Alright, let's actually work that out. So I have, how much did I need? 3.75 so we need 3.75 stators. Oh, we're going to be making pipes anyway for this stator default recipe. Okay, that's interesting. So for the steel rotor recipe, we need 3.75, which means we need 7.5 steel pipes per minute. 7.5 pipes, 22.5 wire equals 3.75 rotors. And we could make stators using those same ingredients, which would be 11.25 pipes, 30 wire equals 3.75 stators. And then that would be relatively straightforward to get both of those. Both will fit in a single machine. So then the question is, are there better alternatives? So if we make the rotors out of rods and screws, it would be 3.75. Now let's work the pipe recipe through. So if we go steel pipe and we make it out of steel ingots because we have access to that, then in order to get 7.5, we would need 11.25 steel ingots. $11.25 steel ingots makes us our 7.5 pipes, or alternatively we can make the pipes with iron pipes, which we need 30 iron ingots equals 7.5 pipes. So making steel with a solid steel recipe, if we need 11.25, that's 7.5 iron and 7.5 coal. So that's like a staggering amount of savings over using steel pipe. So yeah, solid steel ingot pretty good. Coke steel seems worse. Plus I have a huge amount of iron ingot production anyway, so I may as well use it. Alright, so we're not doing that. So then the only question is, wait, I just realized I forgot to write down actually how much that takes, which was the entire point of doing this exercise. So we need 7.5 pipes, which means 11.25 steel. 11.25 steel is 7.5 iron and coal. 0.5 iron coal equals 11.25 steel. Alright, so that's not that much iron. Now, if I make the rotors using the default recipe, it would be 3.75, so 18.75 rods, 75 rods plus 93.75 screws equals 3.75 rotors. And if we go into the rods, we can make the rods out of steel. So how many rods do we need? 18.75. So that would be 4.688 steel ingots equals 18.75 rods. And then we also would need the screws. So the steel screws alternate, we need, what, 93.75? 93.75 is 1.803 steel beams equals 93.75. Alright, we've run out of space. Time to put down another sign for notes. So layout, text only. Alright, why is it swapped to the scanner? I don't want that. Alright, so we need 7.5 pipes, 22.5 wire equals 3.75 rotors and 7.5 pipes equals, where was that? 7.5 iron and coal. I never sorted out the wire. 5 wire equals question mark. All right, then what was this? All right, so that is the first option, and I just need to finish by figuring out the wire, which we can make using iron wire, which would be conveniently exactly one batch, which would be 12.5 iron ingots per minute. Ah, and it didn't save it. Cool. 7.5 pipes, 22.5 wire equals 3.75 rotors. And then that would add up to, let's see, I've forgotten it again because I got distracted. 7.5 iron ingots, 7.5 coal equals 7.5 pipes. Having typed the number 7 a lot, and my 7 key is somewhat unreliable. And then 22.5 wire equals alright, how much was that? 12.5 iron ingots per minute. 12.5 iron ingots. So the total would be like 20 ingots and 7.5 coal. So then we can get rid of that. Alright, so now we have to calculate the steel beams. So using the default recipe, I guess, we need 1.803, which would be 7.212 steel. 212 steel ingots. Alright, this was for the screws. I think it was 93.75 and 7.212 steel ingots equals 1.803 steel beams. So we would need in total like 11, what, like 12.9 12.9 steel ingots equals 3.75 rotors. So then if we set this to 12.9, we get 8.6 of each. So that is worse, right? Alright, cool. So we've discarded that as an option. Default recipe, no good. Copper rotor recipe, probably. I mean, there's no fancy stuff we can do with copper sheets, right? Not really. Alright, we're just going to go with a pipe and wire recipe for that. And then finally there's the stators, which probably just going to go with a pipe and wire recipe for that as well. Alright, so now we know all of that. So we need 3.75 rotors, 3.75 stators, And I assume we'll be importing the oscillators, although we'll see. Right, now we have a general idea of what we're doing. We can actually start making a blueprint. So we load that in. And then we go around here. So we need basically 3 inputs. And I've already forgotten. So yeah, so we're going to have the crystal oscillators in their own production line. And then here we're going to make the stators and rotors and final assembly into the motors. So we need an input. We need 2 inputs to make the steel and the wire. You need a 3rd input for the crystal oscillators. Alright, I'm trying to stand on this and it's not having it. Alright, so first off, let's actually just get the assemblers in so that I can see these all marked down next to each other. Alright, so steel rotor alternate, default stator recipe. We need 3.75 of each, 3.75, and 3.75. So we need 30. So we need 52.5 wire in total, which is going to be a couple constructors, right? So we make iron wire. Yeah, this is going to be 3 constructors for the iron wire, which is kind of a concerningly large amount. It means that space is going to be a bit tight in here. So let's get those, I don't know, facing this way maybe. So we need 3 constructors for iron wire, and we need 11.25, 7.5, so that's what, 19 steel pipes, which is just barely manageable in a single constructor. So then we need the foundries for solid steel ingots, which will be more than enough. Alright, so we need a foundry, 4 constructors, 2 assemblers, and a manufacturer. Alright, so we'll start off with the foundry over here by this wall. And that's not where we want to put it. We need to put it there. And we need this splitting into it, which isn't gonna work, at least not like that. So can we move this foundry? Like, is that as far to the side as it'll go? Yeah. Alright, so we need some space then, which is unfortunate because every bit of space is precious, but we have that. Alright, so these aren't going quite far enough down. So if I bring that down like that, It's not quite working. Maybe if I have the splitter more... Maybe I can just do this and get a splitter in like that. It's a lot uglier. That's why is it like that? But fine, I guess that works. So that makes solid steel ingots. And then this needs to branch off to the constructors. Hang on, actually, I think I want this. I think I want that. Just let me cook here. If I put this floor hole in there, then that can get the crystal oscillators down to the bottom floor with no real effort. And then we have all of our inputs accounted for. The coal just goes in here, the iron just does that. Alright, so now we need constructors. 1, 2, and 3. That's... Are we going to be able to fit at least one assembler back here? Yes. Can we fit 2? Maybe. If we are real clever. Alright, so if we do something like that. So these make the wire. 1, 2, and 3. And they get split from there. Does this go there? No, it's not. It's not going to. Alright, so if we do that, and we get a splitter on this, then it's not happy. Okay, we need to fix that splitter and make it more normal. Like, if we have that splitter there, does that actually work? Hang on. So we have that. It doesn't quite line up properly that way. Yeah, these stupid conveyor lifts are very resilient to lining up properly. Like, they really do not want to ever align properly to anything under any circumstances. Like, it would be so easy if this just, like, lined up to the correct floor level. Or if this was lined up correctly. But it doesn't work. And if I take this out, the whole thing probably breaks. So I don't want to do that. Alright, what if I put... Not power tower platform. Why would it be that? What if I put that there, and then it feeds from there and there, and then this goes into there. Nope, still refuses to work. Maybe if I bring it down there. Nope. Gosh, these vertical splitters not quite lining up to the same grid as everything else is exceedingly annoying. Alright, what if I undo this, and I have this one going in there, and then that one going into here somehow? Alright, yeah, so then this one can leave through a floor hole there, maybe? Something like that. Alright. Now we have just a regular old line of splitters. So then we have this, that, and that. So wire is done. Now we need to squeeze another constructor in here, which will take the steel and convert it into pipes. Alright, now we need to merge up the wire and I guess something like that. The splitters are very close, but that's probably fine. And then we fit a conveyor hole in and attach that up. And wait, these didn't need to go down to the bottom floor. These need to go into these machines, which make stators and rotors. Alright, so then we need to get very creative with our belt placement for this. Alright, so that is the easy one. Okay. Hang on, how much does this use? If this is at 3.75, this uses 30 wire per minute, which means it needs 2. Alright, hang on. I think I'm cooking. So if we have this one be the rotors and this one be the stators, so then this one, which is set to 3.75, needs the output of exactly one of these. Which means we don't need this to be a manifold at all. This can just directly feed into that. So we take all of that out, and we just belt that in there. Alright, now this merger needs to just face a different direction. So it merges that up, then that, and then that provides the wire for those, which is set to 3.75. Alright, now we take this, which is the steel pipes, we bring it around here, and then it gets a splitter. So some of them go into there. And then this belt just goes along this way and then in. And now we have this tiny space here where we can put a floor hole and a conveyor lift. So then that goes in there. And then this twists around this way and goes into a floor hole here. Why are you facing that way? I wish you could face that way. And then that goes in there. So now we have our 3 inputs to our motors. And we still have enough space, maybe, to run the output down through there. All right, this was certainly creative. All right, now we get in here and we take those 3, we manufacture them together, and we should be good to go. Alright. I do want that to line up with that, just for the sake of convenience. Alright. That's the output. Check. And then we have our 3 inputs, which just come down from the ceiling. And then they all just loop in nice and neatly. And they come around. And then this is set to rigger motor. And that is this. Alright, now we just need to power this on. Where's the door on this level? We just need to power this on. Make crystal oscillators as well. And then that will be that produced. Alright, there are a lot of buildings on this level. So we are going to need multiple power lines to get all of them. But there's that one, there's that one. Alright. That's everything. Alright, so the last thing we need to do is the underclocking for all of this. So this needs 7.5 steel pipes. This needs 11.25 steel pipes. So 7.5 plus 11.25 is 18.75. So that's this one, 18.75. Which means I need 28.125 ingots. 28.125. Alright. And next, for the wire, this one needs 22.5. That one's producing 22.5. This one needs 30. So these ones make 15 each. And assuming I haven't missed any tiny belts anywhere, which I don't think I have, this should be all good to go. And now we just save this as motors, which takes 1.25 crystal oscillators. Hang on, wait. I actually don't know how much of the coal and iron ingots this uses. So where's the stupid entrance? It's up here. I don't know how I missed it. I must have been flying too low. Alright, so I need 18.75 iron ingots, 18.75 coal. 18.75 iron, not ingots. Ingots plus coal. And that is that. So this takes motors V2, and it's 1.25 crystal oscillators, 18.7, not 19.75, 18.75 iron ingots, 18.75 coal, to 7.5 motors. And we save that. And we clear it. And a bit of lag, but we got it. Alright, so then the next step is the crystal oscillators, which I already had planned. I don't fully remember what my plans were, but I'm sure they were good plans. Alright, not that door. This door up here. Alright, so we set down a manufacturer and insulated crystal oscillator. So this needs to be 1.25. Alright, so we need quartz crystals and rubber and AI limiters. What were these notes? So the AI limiters is quick wire plus plastic. So we need to import deuterium, quartz crystals, plastic, and rubber. That's 4 inputs. Alright. Please let me get my notes up while also being able to see that sign. So 18.75 quick wire plus 4.375 plastic equals AI limiters plus 12.5 quartz crystals plus 8.75 rubber equals crystal oscillators. Alright, so now we have that. Let's get up here and get an assembler.
Is that the best way to do that?
Alright, so we're doing plastic AI limiter. And I don't remember how much that I need. How does one make quick wire? Are there any fancy tricks to it? Yes, but they require large quantities of copper. So we're just going to do the regular quick wire recipe, which will fit into a single thing. And then we're going to import plastic because it's a pain for efficiency. Quartz crystals. We could make pure quartz crystals, but let's actually check. 5/3 versus 9/7. 5/3 is 1.67 quartz per crystals. 9/7 is 1.2. It's definitely savings, but I guess we probably should. Nah, it's not big enough of a deal. We're just going to make the quartz crystals using the inefficient recipe for now. Alright. So we do that. So what do we need to do? We need to make the AI limiters. And how many of those do we need? I didn't write it down. I need 1.875. If this is to be... No, this is not to be believed. Actually, hang on. This is going to be a separate production line entirely. So there's no reason to have it be at 1.25. So we can just produce crystal oscillators normally. So we need 1.875 AI limiters. 1.875. And that means I need 28.125 quick wire. 28.125 quick wire. And 6.563 plastic. 6.563 plastic equals 1.875 AI limiters. 1.875. So let's start by doing that. So we just have a constructor there. And it feeds from that. So that takes in deuterium ingots and gives us our 28.125 quick wire. Then we take an assembler, which I think I'll align like that. So then it takes that and a second belt, which contains plastic. So then this makes the AI limiters at 1.875. Alright, so we have AI limiters, check. Next we need to take raw quartz and make quartz crystals. Which I guess I can just fit in a constructor pretty much anywhere. And there we go. And then this makes... How many quartz crystals do we need? 18.75. 18.75 and 13.125 rubber. Alright, so then this makes quartz crystals. 18.75. So then we have that. Quartz crystals, check. AI limiters, check. Rubber will be input number 4. And check. So now we just put the floor holes in. And this is a fair bit simpler than the previous one. We're doing less production on site and more importing stuff. Alright. And then we just go down to the bottom floor. Actually, I'll power this up while I'm here. And you get to be upgraded. And then come down here. Wait, no, this is too far down. Is that pole just going to conveniently stick through the floor here and let me see it? Yes, it is. Great. Alright, so then I just plop down my manufacturer, have it face in a direction, and then we bring these down, and go in, and you make insulated crystal oscillators, and you get powered on. And then we need to bring this up to the top. So get that in. And then this comes around and up there. And then we just finish that off. With that. And crystal oscillator is done. And this takes 5.625 Caterium ingots. 625 Caterium ingots. So then we just go out here and save that. So this is crystal oscillators V2, and it is 5.625 Caterium ingots. 13.125 rubber, 6.536 plastic, and some amount of raw quartz, and raw quartz to 1.875 crystal oscillators. And then we're going to have to go and figure out how much quartz that is, because I don't like having question marks in my blueprints. It's 31.25. 31.25. And aren't these all some nice, neat, round numbers? No, they are not. Alright, so we save that, clear the blueprint designer. Let's see, it's 435. I have like 3 different projects that I need to do to make this work. So I need to import Caterium and quartz. I need to make the Caterium ingot factory. I need to what else is there? I need to make the rubber factory, because currently I just have plastic. And I think that's everything. And then I'll need to put in the crystal oscillator factory and the motor factory. and then everything should be good. Now let's head over here. So this is the project we were working on at the start. And I wonder if it has failed horribly or if it's still just chugging along. It seems... Alright, it's definitely not being evenly balanced. Like, this has 2 rows left, approximately. This one has approximately 1 row left. This one has like 4 spaces left. And this top one is entirely full. But apparently not that entirely full, otherwise stuff would be happening with this box, and it's not. Alright, so the question is the unbalance happening because my setup was wrong, or is the unbalance happening because it just started unbalanced and never got fixed? They certainly all look like they're receiving balanced input. If you just look at those 4 belts. And the spacing seems to be the same on all of them. So as far as that should be good. As far as this, it's probably fine. And the output is going to be almost impossible to tell. We're going to have to wait for a truck to stop down there to empty up some space. So theoretically, all 4 of these lines here should be used equally, because we have our distributor up there. It's hard to tell, but there is a tool for this. So let's get, what is it, organization? Is it logistics? Throughput monitors. 2, 3, 4. So each of those get a throughput monitor. And it looks like, yeah, they were each receiving 240 while the thing was going, which is exactly the numbers you expect to see because 2 of those external belts were running. And that's 960 each. So it looks like this is working, and I just need to rebalance the containers. So I could do that. So this one is full to 100%. So if I just get everything to be 100% full, then it should be balanced. And if I take canisters from the dimensional storage, then the whole thing technically starts running, which is a bit weird. So yeah, these are definitely looking like the balancing worked properly. Alright, so we have another batch coming in. Alright, so if I make that entirely full, then I come down here and I try to start filling these bottom ones up, then... So the problem is if these aren't all like synchronized with the same amount of canisters, then funny things might or might not happen. And I have no way of proving that or like verifying that it won't. So I kind of want to be careful to avoid that. So this bottom one is the risky one because it's by far the furthest from being full. So if there were to be a problem, it would be there. So let's check the overflow boxes, see if there's anything there. Also, the top two are hooked up to a sink, the bottom two aren't, which shouldn't make a meaningful difference. But theoretically, that sink should never run. But it is a safety precaution that I have. Alright, so if I just grab like 3 stacks off of each of the top two, and then that one's down approximately 3 stacks, and then I throw all of them into here. That will significantly decrease the gap between them. It won't entirely remove it, though. But I'm pretty sure this will work properly all the way through. I'd be very surprised if it didn't. So I think we're just going to call that there. All right. Is there any other projects I could be working on? Yeah, pretty much no matter when I look, these always look to be giving the same numbers. So that's a good sign. I assume the same thing is true down at the bottom. All right. Yeah, I think we're gonna probably call it there for today. I don't want to get into like the whole giant process of setting up the motor factory like with this close to the end of the stream. So I think we're gonna call it there. I will be back on Monday from 2 to 5 where we will get that whole motor system set up. And there's going to be a lot of intermediary steps along the way, which frankly is sort of a side benefit, like getting all sorts of other things set up as well. Like I need the crystal oscillator blueprint at some point, right? So yeah, we'll be here 2 to 5 on Monday, and then Magic on Tuesday as usual. Make sure to follow if you haven't already. And yeah, I will see you guys